Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we are ranking the cards from the Commander Masters pre-constructed decks. So Commander's Masters is a reprint set, but the pre-constructed decks, there are 4 of them, each have new cards. Each deck has 10 new cards, 1 Commander, 9 new cards. We're going to rank them all relative to each other today. So join with me on the podcast is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I'm doing super well. Excited to talk about these interesting new Magic cards.
Phil, Brewer's Kitchen, how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty excited about the themes of the decks. The cards are okay. Most of them are
they're okay. I'm your host, Richard. Normally, Krim and or Tomer would be here, but they're actually traveling to Barcelona. Phil will be there too, but Phil is closer, so he hasn't started traveling yet. So before we get into today's episode, today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. Their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value $1 or more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. And you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed, and you can get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you, Card Conduit, for supporting today's show. You can send in your old decks, get some cash money for them, buy the new cards, or maybe after this tier list ranking, you're going to get rid of some of your new cards to buy other cards. So today we have an actual tier list up. You can find them on Tier List Maker. We're going to rank each card in the context of their deck. So we're going to start with the Eldrazi deck. So we're going to rank how good the cards are in the Eldrazi deck relative to each other. And then also we're going to point out any notable cards that go above and beyond, and you may play them in other colorless decks or non-colorless decks, like just regular decks. So kicking things off, Abstruse Archaic. It's a 4 mana, so 4 generic. It's a 3/4. It's a creature avatar. It has vigilance. You can pay 1 mana to tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control from a colorless source. You may choose new targets for the copy. We're going to start all cards in the B average. A would be very good, like one of the best cards in your deck. C would be cut, like you're probably looking to replace this. And S would be, I would play this in a non-Eldrazi deck. Just A, B.
Nah. So what is this? So what does this card actually do? Like, so it copies Eldrazi triggers, right? Like that's like the main use of it. You cast an Eldrazi with a cast trigger, and then you copy that and get double the cast trigger. Is that what?
So cast triggers, Annihilator. You get to double Annihilator, right? You get to any big Eldrazi that has a cast trigger. Does it do anything with like artifacts? Like just non-Eldrazi, right? Like artifacts you have and stuff like that. They're also colorless.
Non-mana abilities, though. First of all, that's kind of a bummer. The wording is weird, right? It only says you can copy mana abilities in the brackets, right?
But I don't think...
Yeah, because mana ability is not activated or triggered.
Oh, because it's a mana source. Yeah. Okay. Still,
so I think that's the ssame as like Resonator or something. I think there's combos, like Sands of Time is an artifact that says at the beginning of each player's turn, untap each tapped artifact creature, enchantment, and land they control, and tap each untapped artifact creature land. So you can use this to like generate infinite mana during your upkeep if you want to. You'd have to have a way to like spend that mana on something. I don't know. I don't think it's an A by any. I think B is maybe being generous.
Oh wow, you think it's like not playable?
I think it's a C. I think you would cut it. It's a 4-drop that you have to untap with. Then you have to pay extra. Then it gets a lot of restriction.
Mana 3/4 that doubles all your Eldrazi triggers.
Not all your, once per turn. It does
I
trigger
love when
yes, once per turn.
Copy trigger abilities, which is cool. But I think that's too clunky. I'm sorry. In today's Magic, I would give it a B because it's probably fun, but I'd cut it from my deck probably. I mean, I play an artifact deck, and I don't consider.
I think part of the problem is like the Eldrazi triggers are so strong. do you really need to copy them? Like, if you're doing the Eldrazi thing, do you really need double the Annihilator, double the
Annihilator 2 is not as good as Annihilator 4.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
A draw 8 is a lot better than a draw 4. All for the lowly cost of 1 extra mana, and you just play this 4-drop Dirtle card.
Yeah,
so I think
4-drop.
I would not play this for value. I would play it for infinite combos, but if I'm just trying to like copy Eldrazi triggers, I don't think I would play it.
Okay, we're going to cut. We're gonna start things off being ruthless.
Do you just assume you can go infinite with this? You can't copy mana abilities, and it costs
so
mana.
Sands of Time is I know that goes infinite with it. That's the it's at the beginning of each player's turn, untap each tapped artifact, creature, or land they control, and then tap each untapped artifact, creature, or land they control. So you can use that to untap all your lands to make the mana to copy the trigger and like make infinite mana and infinite untaps. So there are like some combos like that. So that would be my main home for it. But
4 mana, no haste.
Scuffed, cut. Yeah. Okay, somewhere between B and C. Okay, somewhere in there. We're gonna go C. Okay, I don't know if we're going alphabetical, but we should probably start with the commander. Zulodok, Void Gorger, 6 mana. There's colorless in there, so 5 and a colorless. It's a 7/4 legendary Eldrazi. Colorless spells you cast from your hand with mana value 7 or greater have Cascade. So double Cascade. But you need to untap, and it needs to be 7 mana or more. I personally think he's scuffed.
Sorry, but I had this at A.
I don't know. It is the face card of this deck. What do you guys think?
I mean, you gotta remember, colorless commanders are pretty bad. Like, in general, there's some okay Eldrazi, like Kozilek's okay, but really, there's not a lot of depth in colorless commanders. And colorless decks are really expensive because the whole gimmick of colorless is you like play a ton of mana rocks and then play a ton of expensive stuff. So a lot of your decks can either be cheap mana rocks or expensive things that cost 7 or more. I actually really like this too. It can't be an S tier. I don't think this is like the next Prosper or something. But if I was building a colorless deck, I think this is the commander I would probably play as my commander. So I put it in A.
Any Kozilek over any Ulamog?
Is it as strong as Kozilek or Ulamog? Maybe not, but I think it's way more interesting and fun. And if I'm like commander, I want to be doing like cool things and having fun and like getting people
to pay 6 mana and get Doombladed without getting any value.
So my argument for the Archaic was pretty much that, but for this one, I think is it easier to trigger? I don't know. I just assume that you play a colorless deck with enough support cards to handle this card, which might be a little optimistic. But usually if you have a card that you have to untap with, you really got to get a huge tempo and value advantage once you untap with it. With this one, I think you're fine. Just cast an artifact creature with affinity for artifacts, cast it for 0, cascade twice. Ooh, baby. That seems, I mean, I'm kind of contradicting myself playing this in A.
Did Seth like C. A? Seth felt A, and then Phil has A.
I would, yeah. To me, it's like a high B or a low A. But I actually really like the card.
Because Eldrazi are so expensive, you need to fill your deck with like ramp, mana rocks, the very things you do not want to cascade into. That's right. And you cannot do the good old like we'll play this and then make sure we get value. So we'll like double spell, right? That would be like 14 mana, right? Like you cannot double spell. So you need to like cast this, cross your fingers, boot it up or something, and then like try to untap and then cast your spells with it. Oh, it's super scuffed. And like, how many expensive Eldrazi are you gonna have?
I mean, remember too, like Phil mentioned affinity for artifacts. There's quite a few. There's quite a Metalwork Colossus. There's a bunch of Colossuses that are like expensive but less to cast. I think you can build around it if you want to. Like, there's
You're already winning though if you Metalwork Colossus and untap.
But cascade twice. That's so much fun.
Oh wait, no. I was thinking the other one. No, Metalwork Colossus.
No, Metalwork is just an.
Do you want to play that?
Oh, Blightsteel.
I was thinking of Metalworker.
I don't know. I think it's a cool card. A is probably like pushing it. I would be fine with a B. I'd be fine with it.
I'd be immediately looking at the alternate commander. I would immediately be picking up my Kozilek to replace this, actually.
Ooh, really?
I mean, we
Not
can.
a fan, eh?
There is another commander in there.
Because remember, like, you not only have to double, like, you need to make up for the fact that this is a 6-mana do-nothing scuffed commander, right? So even if you double cascade into something legit, it may not be good enough because you basically played, like, a no card on turn 6. True. You know what I mean? Like, imagine someone played like a real commander on turn 6. You got to make up that value, right? On plus your other card after the untap. You have a lot of ground to make up for doing this. So
I mean, you can cast this and then have enough artifact affinity to just throw a 7-drop with affinity.
Yeah.
Just out there.
But that's a very specific deck, right?
It is a very, I mean, it's a colorless deck.
You're artifact deck, but you're not an Eldrazi deck anymore, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
It might be better, actually, as an affinity commander than an Eldrazi commander. I could see that argument.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of the lieutenant, the second commander, we have Omarthus. We'll put him right beside Zuladok there. Omarthus Ghostfire Initiate. XX. It's a 0/0 legendary creature, Spirit Naga. It ETBs with X +1/+1 counters, and whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on another colorless creature, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Omarthus. And then when it dies, manifest a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of counters on it.
I wish this was an artifact.
Very specific.
If this was an artifact, it would be such. It would be so sweet as an artifact. I like this. So this is a horrible Eldrazi commander. The worst. Like, you do not want to build an Eldrazi deck with this. I don't know why you would ever do that. On the other hand, if you want to go like modular shenanigans, Arcbound Ravagers and sacking Hangerback Walkers, I feel like this is a really cool, Overseer. Sadly, it itself isn't an artifact, which is awkward, but still I could imagine you building a deck with all those cards where you get like a ton of counters. This is going to get really huge because you're putting a bunch of counters on colorless stuff. Then you sack it and manifest like most of your deck, and I feel like it's actually a really cool, it's a niche archetype, obviously, that you're going to be playing colorless modular, but I feel like it's a really sweet commander. I want to build a deck around it. I think in that archetype it's good. I would never build an Eldrazi deck with it, though.
No.
It
is interesting. I'd still keep it at B, sadly.
An S?
So it can't be...
Can we put it in a random deck? No, right?
It can't be an S. Like, you got to be a colorless deck and a +1/+1 counter deck. Those are two very, very specific asks out of this card. So I think that means it would top out at A at the highest. I think if you were colorless encounters, it's good. It's a good commander. I can't think of any deck I would play this in the 99 of. Like, the problem is the other +1/+1 counter really decks,
exist, right? Yeah.
This would have to make this new archetype, basically. The other +1/+1 counter decks don't put counters on colorless creatures for the most part. So I think that's kind of like the issue. Like, I don't know what this would do in your typical Hamza or whatever +1/+1 counter deck. So I think it's got to make its own archetype, but in that archetype, it would be strong.
There's modular decks in Boros colors, right? With this insect commander. I think it...
Oh, Zabaz or whatever.
Something, yeah. I mean, you can throw it in the 99 there. It really... I would be fine with moving it to A if it's an artifact, just because it fits this archetype so well, but the fact that it's not an artifact is kind of... sad.
B-ish.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't... It's kind of like all it is a big creature. Like, so you go through all your synergies, right? And you just made your commander bigger, essentially, right? It doesn't enable any combos, right? It just puts a counter on itself, and then it's card advantage with the second ability.
The card advantage, I think, helps. It's kind of like Wrath Protection / synergy.
Wait, what if you copy
like
this?
you could in a world cast this for 10 mana. It's a 5/5. Like, draw 5 cards when it dies. That's it. Like, just ignore the middle ability altogether, right? Like, the middle ability doesn't let you go infinite or do any combo. It just kind of just grows. It's like a Hangerback Walker.
Wait, is there a way to
play
copy it? If you create a non-legendary copy of this should go infinite with itself, right? And maybe never stop, and the game ends.
Okay, yes. If you have a very specific combo,
I mean, that's
double,
right? But it's not like It's not like a doubling season or
die.
something.
Actually, if you copy this, it dies. Maybe copy it with
like
a
Sakashima or something, like one of those
like
non-legendary
a curse mirror
copy
effect
things.
or something. Oh, curse mirror, not machine.
Okay, I'm
guards,
tempted to give this a C,
SSD,
but you guys are at B's. We'll give
Probably,
it a B then.
yeah. Add it to the B pile.
It just draws cards. It just draws
the B pile
cards.
is gonna be pretty.
Who doesn't like drawing cards though?
But when it dies, so when you farewell it, you are very sad.
I mean, I'm
Source
always
the
sad
flashes it.
when a farewell hits. So, yeah.
And it doesn't even draw the cards that well because they're manifest. So unless you're hitting creatures, you only get 2/2s. Like you can't flip up your spells that you hit or mana rock. So B.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Calamity of the Titans. 4 colorless. So 6 mana. As additional cost to cast a spell, reveal a colorless creature card from your hand. Exile each creature and planeswalker with mana value less than the revealed card's mana value.
A. Yeah. Wow, really?
Wait,
A? So okay, if you're playing an Eldrazi deck or a colorless deck, is this not just a auto include? Like obviously, if you're not playing a colorless deck, it's bad. But if you're playing Eldrazi,
This is a 6 mana Sunfall that requires a card in hand.
Well, you're colorless. Like how many? Wow, what are you using? Ugin? Ugin's an 8 mana Sunfall.
No,
like
that's
in the world of colorless. That's like what you deal with to sweep the board.
You can
But
go.
Ugin provides so much more value that this is like almost fadeaway levels, right? It's kind of like.
Is this not like the second best colorless Wrath or something? Like Ugin, you can argue is better.
Okay,
is this not number?
Ugin, Boom Pile. You may not like Boom Pile. All is Dust. Would you not play All is Dust over this? Would you not play Ugin over this?
Would
you not play other Ugin? Little Ugin?
All is Dust. Okay, that's number 2. So
Navinral's Disc.
I think it's better than Disc, and it does exile. It does exile.
It is exile. It does exile.
Which is an upside.
You'd put this in every colorless deck?
So not.
Would you put it in every white or black deck? How about that? Does this go in a blue deck?
No,
right? Because you have to reveal a colorless card.
You got to reveal a colorless card, and
you can reveal Solemn and do a very sad Wrath.
There could be some blue or red artifact decks where it'd be worth it if you're playing a bunch of big like Perforos. It puts a lot of big artifact creatures into play. Maybe you could argue for it there.
It's a reveal a colorless creature card, so it has to be colorless. It has to be creature as well.
Yeah,
and high CMC, so pretty much an Eldrazi.
Okay,
And then
so
you
it's pretty much like Eldrazi decks.
Okay, Eldrazi stable, which maybe that's actually a B then. Maybe A is too high.
B?
I think if I'm playing any Eldrazi deck, I would play it.
Wow.
I'm surprised you're so low.
Wait.
Are you a low one at 2, Phil?
Yes.
Phil, where are you on this?
I would
You low or
prefer
high?
to play Boom Pile over this thing.
Yes.
At least it's fun.
We're a C believer.
So the play pattern
Alright.
just seems super situational. And then if you, I mean, either you cast this on an empty board with then the disc would probably be better. Then you have to show, like, what do you show? An Ulamog? Everything you show is pretty expensive because the other stuff is on the battlefield, but then you exile like a 7-drop because you've shown an Ulamog, and then like if this does it Raf your own stuff as well.
Like you don't want the play pattern of having
It does.
uncastables in your hand, right? You kind of want to draw them later or just literally be in your command zone.
But I think you are not considering what Eldrazi are like. Like, if you're playing an Eldrazi deck, isn't that your whole gimmick? That your deck is just
But you
full
have
of,
like 3
9, 10
expensive
mana creatures.
Eldrazi.
That's your
But you only have like 3 of them in your deck, right? Because you can't be flooded with Eldrazi, and usually one of them is in your command zone.
Yeah.
I
Also,
don't know.
6
I
mana
think
isn't
people
that
play a
cheap.
lot of...
Just
It's not
compare
that-
So
it
you would
to
play
Farewell.
so you would play this over Boom Pile. So your
Yes.
Wrath order in colorless would be like Ugin, all is
Ugin
Dust.
always does this, probably. Assuming I'm playing like an Eldrazi deck. Because in Eldrazi, I'm going to have a lot of 6+ mana creatures that are actually going to mostly sweep the board. I think it would be number 3, which would make the cut in my Eldrazi decks pretty much every time.
I would be cutting it. I'd be playing Boom Pile before this, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I'm outvoted though, so if you leave it in C, I'm not
Okay.
gonna fight about it because
Okay,
you can fill
so-
both their C's. So,
So B and C were somewhere in that range.
but I am the high person on this one for sure.
Okay, here I'll move it to the front of C.
Okay, the front of C. Okay, that's a good compromise.
Okay. Dark Steel Monolith. It's an 8-drop. It's an artifact. It's indestructible. Once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than the mana cost for a colorless spell you cast from hand.
This card intrigues me. I expect that it's bad. When you consider it costs 8 mana, like...
Yeah.
So you got to be getting to a 9, 10, 11 plus drop for it to actually generate mana for you. That's the first turn is kind of rough. I think the place I'm most excited about it is actually like Duretti, Osgir, like Artifact Reanimator style decks. If you're like cheating this into play early in the game, then it seems pretty explosive. So I'm actually kind of like cut in Eldrazi decks, but really sweet in Artifact Reanimate, like an Artifact Reanimator decks, if that makes any sense.
Too bad it doesn't say colorless or artifact, so you can throw like thought monitors or something in there. Okay, thought monitors usually not that expensive.
It's free though.
Yeah.
But yeah, colored
So
artifact, Bolas's Citadel or something.
Spell,
Yeah.
though, right? Each turn
So
you may pay 0. Oh no, you get any number of spells.
Yeah, so you can play multiple spells with your mana. You get 1 for free each turn. You can cast 1 for free, but you can still...
Oh, yeah, okay. So you only get 1 free spell.
1 free spell.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty bad. Okay, Seth, is this the best reanimation target? If I was going to go through all the work of reanimating
Portrait of Phyrexia gotta be number 1 there.
So I think the utility of this is, so if you're playing Reanimator, your deck's going to have a lot of expensive stuff. This is a nice way to get that stuff out of your hand.
You just reanimate that expensive stuff directly and call it a day.
But sometimes that stuff is stuck in your hand. Like you're not always going to have it. Sometimes you have the Omniscience or Ulamog or whatever in your hand. Not Omniscience in this case, but you know what I'm saying? Like this is the way, like in Modern, you see Reanimator decks that sometimes play like Through the Breach because they're like, well, I want to reanimate my Emrakul with Goryo's Vengeance, but sometimes it's in my hand instead of my graveyard. I'll just through the breach in to play for my hand and get you. Couldn't this serve a similar
isn't that to get around graveyard hate?
Yeah, this gets around. Well, yeah. Is there any argument for playing it fairly? Just like you're playing Eldrazi, you play this and then
you're barely saving any mana. You're already at 8 mana to cast this, right? Like what are you casting that you're saving? Like I guess if you really played, so 15 mana Emrakul is banned.
Yep.
13 mana Emrakul doesn't really cost 13. So like you're probably playing like a 12-drop Eldrazi.
11,
you save 4
12.
mana.
Although
like, I could just play a Thran Dynamo that's like much more consistent and like a lot easier to pull off to like get me 99% of the way there, right?
But the next turn, then you're making 10 mana or whatever, 11 mana. Because on the next turn, it's already paid for itself and you're getting all that mana as a bonus. So if it sticks out, the second turn, it's actually pretty powerful, right?
Yes, if you were flooded with 12 drops in your hand and somehow made it here. Like, yes, I don't know.
That's how Eldrazi
like, you can't
works.
even combo. Like, if you could somehow draw your whole deck or something and just play like 10, 12 drops on the same turn, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, if you flicker it, you can use it again, I guess.
Ooh, that is
maybe
true.
with Displace a Kitten or something. It is kind of sad that it doesn't have one more text box on it saying like you can cast the free spell from your graveyard or from the top of your library or something. There was a card in a recent set that made this in blue, like something multiverse or something.
The one with the multiverse, yeah.
Yeah, this one actually plays similar, but very well because you can also cast stuff from the top of your library. Maybe, like, if that's the only expensive card in your hand, you're gonna feel very dumb playing this, and then, free Mindstone, here we go.
It's like Omniscience. Do you just slap Omniscience into a random deck? Like, no, right? No. But you can make a deck to make Omniscience do a lot of work. And I think that's true of this, although Omniscience is a lot more... universal to make work. I think there's a deck where this actually does something, but it's so specific, right? So I think you need to know what you're doing to pull this one off.
I would say if you're playing the precon, this would probably be the first card I take out. Just looking at the deck list, there's just not enough stuff where this is going to generate mana for you. So I think, like you said, you really got to be built specifically around it to make it work at all. I'm
leaving it in cut. Because in the context of this Eldrazi precon, we're cutting it.
Give us a good card, Richard. Where's the good cards?
I don't know. Are there any good cards? Desecrate Reality. This is a 7 mana instant. For each opponent, exile up to one target permanent that player controls with even mana value. And then Adamant, if at least 3 colorless mana was spent to cast this spell, return a permanent with an odd mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. A lot of value. So 3 removal spells for only with even mana value, and then a reanimation of an odd mana value from your graveyard.
I mean, 7 mana instant speed. Isn't this not bad for colorless removal? Like, one thing I've learned from recent sets is, like, Mightstone and Weakstone, 5 mana, target creature gets -5, -5. That's actually, like, about as good as removal gets for colorless. So I feel like in the context of how bad colorless removal is, even with the restriction on mana values, getting one of each of your opponent's permanents and theoretically reanimating something, that actually seems pretty good for 7 mana. And being an instant is also sneaky because it potentially means you can get an Eldrazi that shuffles back in and do the like Goryo's Vengeance trick where you can cast this at instant speed with Eldrazi shuffle trigger on the stack and reanimate it. So I actually think this is like a really good colorless card. I think
are you saying really good or very good?
Okay, so I would not play this outside of colorless decks, but in colorless decks, I think it's very good. So I would put it as an A tier card for colorless big mana decks.
Phil, let's bring Seth back to earth here. Is this the best card of the precons?
Yeah, so the only problem is it is an instant, which is cool, but when do you keep up 7 mana? Just casually keeping up 7. I love the artwork. I was kind of sad when I read the card. The effect is cool, but 7 mana seems a little steep.
I love the artwork because the
like probably 6.
It's not you, it's me breakup line of Magic cards. It's like
yes.
I know you really hate the card, but
I would put it at D. But I'd probably put it at B, honestly. The effect is pretty cool, and you are really stuck on removal. Like, Boom Pile, right? So
it's not even remove. You thought Boom Pile was bad. What if they have an odd mana value?
Yeah, that kind of sucks. Yeah, the whole restriction is flavor, and it's cool for flavor. But it really sucks for.
Then you get their land out of spite if they got an odd mana permanent.
This is like instant speed sweeper mana cost we're talking about here. I could cast a route for 6 mana, right? Like.
It's you can also
cast so expensive
for 7,
colorless,
which usually ends the game. Yeah, it is colorless.
That's the
I would literally play nothing over it. Like if you're like, here's a wrath, it costs 80 mana. I'm like, you know what? Don't need a wrath this week, right? If your spot removal costs 7, don't think I need it. I think I'll pass.
What's the Golgari card from a precon a few years ago? Windgrace's Judgment. Wasn't that you blow up a permanent of each player's? I think it was 5 mana.
Yeah. Is that playable? Do people play that?
Barely playable. Feels cool.
Not really.
But usually,
I thought it was playable, but no, it's in 2% of decks according to EDH Rec, so not really. All right, boy, you guys are so harsh on these.
It's so and then like the thing you want to reanimate, you can't reanimate. It's Eldrazi deck. Like they all like shuffle. Like even if the one you wanted doesn't shuffle, like the other ones do shuffle, so they go take it anyway, right? Like. Oh my goodness! I can't even. It must be the worst card though. Do you put it above? Okay, Seth, I think Seth puts it here.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would actually
is that
put
my role in this podcast? Is how do I organize the cards in the C tier? Is that my purpose? Okay, yeah, that looks good. That looks good.
7 mana. Like, how would you even classify this card? You wouldn't put it in contention with Swords to Plowshares, right? You would put it with Burial Rites or something? Like, how would you even classify? Like, it's not spot removal in my mind.
It's like, I classify it as spot removal. That's how
it doesn't even hit odd mana value permanents.
Yeah, who plays odd mana value permanents?
This is. I think we found a card worse than Fade Away, where it's like it doesn't even sweep the board.
Worse than Fade Away. Oh. Does this card have any good cards that you guys are gonna like? I'm so surprised.
That's one that I think is cool, and that's a very
we're getting
cool
there.
artwork.
Okay, we got a 10 drop. It's 8 and 2 colorless. It's a 10/10. It's Flare of Loyalties. Okay, when you cast the spell, gain control of target creature Until end of turn, untap it. Until end of turn, it becomes a base power toughness 10/10, gains trample, Annihilator 2, and haste. And then Flayer itself is trample with Annihilator 2.
Very cool art.
It's like, it has like pseudo haste, right? Like you take something and it kind of becomes itself. It doesn't, it has trample, Annihilator 2. And then you remove a blocker, I guess, while you're doing this.
And it's a cast
Why don't you
trigger.
keep the card? Have they not read the effects of the other Eldrazi Titans and thought, oh, they can't keep the creature? That would be crazy for 10 mana.
This isn't a named Eldrazi. It's just Flayer of Loyalties. It's not Ulamog.
That was another card. The artwork is so cool. I saw the artwork and thought, please be good. And then I read it and said, no, that is so underwhelming. If it would keep the card and keep it a 10/10 with Annihilator, oh boy. But this way, it's like, what do you even steal? I guess you steal their worst creatures, so they have to annihilate the good ones. Because if you steal the good ones, they can't sacrifice it and just... So it's kind of counterintuitive as well. Kind of want to steal the bad ones. I don't know. It's weird. It does look super sweet, though.
I don't know how big of a deal Annihilator 2 really is by the time this comes down. Like, this is a lot of mana. They might probably have lands or tokens to sack at that point. I feel like this is a card that a lot of people are going to play in the Eldrazi decks, but I think it's actually pretty bad. Considering everyone plays like Desolation Twin, which is just like 10 mana, make two 10/10s. Like, that's like everyone jams that in their Ulamog decks or Emrakul decks or Kozilek decks. I feel like everyone's going to jam this card, but I feel like I don't know. I don't feel like it's actually that strong.
Are you calling Desolation Twin bad?
Yes. This is one of the cards I'm lowest
I'll tell you
on,
why.
honestly.
Desolation Twin is the timmiest card. I love that card. I always try to find some excuse to play that card because you're like, look, it's 20 powers, a 10/10 token. It's amazing. And you know what's funny? Hitting someone with the 10/10 Toski, that fly, like trample Annihilator, right? Like, that's funny. I mean,
wait, can you
steal
your
a Toski?
Wait.
You take a creature.
No, but what if can you take your own gain control of target creature until end of turn? You can turn your own creatures into. Yeah. I mean, maybe not in colorless, but I guess if you there's this Merfolk or whatever that bounces permanents equal to the number to the damage you hit. There's some combos.
You go super deep. If you just take any commander, that's 10 commander damage.
Oh, right.
Like right there, right? If you take a dual commander.
Like counter on it.
It works if you take someone else's commander too, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone else has commander damage from one of your opponents and you take the commander and smack them for 10, like that could be lethal.
Sure.
Wait, do you like this?
Okay, this isn't like very good, but is it average? Would you cut it?
What?
Will we cut it? This is in the cut cat. Are we gonna have a deck anymore when we're done with this tier list?
I wouldn't cut it. Like, there's only so many big colorless Eldrazi that exist, so you probably end up playing it just because there's not that many of them.
It's just like average. It's like okay, like
it's
nothing
like
crazy.
A filler. It's like Desolation Twin. Like, everyone's gonna play it, but once you play it a couple of times, you realize, it's not actually as good as you think. But you don't cut it from your deck.
It's cool.
I didn't know you were a
the
Desolation
10/10 token.
I didn't realize you were a Desolation Twin fan.
I am such a Timmy. Okay, so B is where we're at, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. How about not to be confusing, but Rise of the Eldrazi? 9 colorless. So 12 mana. Sorcery. The spell can't be countered. Destroy target permanent. Target player draws 4 cards. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Rise of the Eldrazi.
At least an A. It gotta be an A. It's gotta be an A. Extra turn,
I got it at A
blow something up, draw 4 cards. It's like colorless expropriate. The only thing I'll say is, I don't know if you haven't been playing for a long time, you might not realize that the actual colorless cost and the mana cost actually is kind of a big deal. That is, it does mean you can't just splash this in a random deck. It's going to be hard to make the colorless mana. So you actually do have to keep that in mind. You have to make actual colorless mana. But I think in any colorless deck, isn't this just like a really good finisher? Uncounterable, extra turn, refill your hand so you got stuff to cast during your extra turn and blow something up.
I kind of thought you would just Mizzix Mastery it. I love the card. It is like, for one card, that is a lot of value. for everyone who didn't notice it, it's the effects of all the Eldrazi Titans stapled onto one card, which is super flavorful. The name is Rise of the Eldrazi. I just don't want to pay for it, but I do want to cheat it into play because, my God, I guess not. I don't like extra turns, but that's my problem. But if you're fine with extra turns,
so Phil's at A, right?
12 mana is nothing in a colorless
I
deck.
am an Eldrazi hater because
What? Really?
It's
okay. Do you realize how much 12 mana is? Like 12 mana is a lot. This card is like stone unplayable most of the time. And then when you actually get there, all you do is just take an extra turn and draw 4 cards.
Oh, is that all? Is that all? Jug only an extra
12
turn and 4
mana? I
cards.
could just win the game, Seth. Like, why am I bothering with these iterations? Like, 12 mana is so much. Do you know if we just started the game and I played a land every single turn? Like, I just played the card off the top of my library and it was a land, right? Like, you can't even do that, right? Like, you know how much mana you know how much cards you need to draw to actually get like 12 lands to cast this? Like, can you cheat this somehow? Can we cheat this?
Mystic's Mastery, just cast this for 4.
Okay.
There's probably enough other stuff.
I think we need to do a colorless week on Commander Clash sometime, because I feel like, have you ever actually played against like a colorless deck, like at a Magic Con or something? I feel like every time I play against someone that reveals Kozilek or Ulamog as their commander, they have 12 mana on like turn 5. They're just like mana rock, Thran Dynamo, mana rock, Grim Monolith, and they're like casting their commander on turn 4 or turn 5. So I think, like, I don't know, in the context of how people build colorless decks, I don't feel like 12 mana is all that intimidating.
But can't you just cast a Time Walk for like 5 mana and like be like, why are we spending 12 mana on our extra turn here?
Because you're a colorless deck,
right?
Like you're color. I mean, like, what other options you have? You're colorless.
Are colorless decks dying for an extra turn here?
I mean, I don't know if they're dying for it, but I would play it in any Eldrazi deck. Plus,
I think you have to
good,
for flavor,
and it's like,
Okay. I'll leave it as A. So our
we finally got an A.
Richard would personally cut it, and
yes, I know.
My deck will look like a Spirited Companion. Yeah, I'll put that one in. 12 mana is so much. If you allow me to reach 12 mana, I believe I should grace you by winning the game rather than like taking an extra turn and like I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like just casting another 12 drop that I could just cast it directly rather than casting this, right? But okay. We got this is scary. A skittering cicada. 3 mana 2/2 insect flash. You may cast color spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a colorless spell until end of turn, it gains trample and +X/+X, where X is that spell's mana value. Okay, I'll shock you guys. Bada boom.
Oh no! It's one of the few cards that actually does something.
I think it's actually one of the best cards in this deck here. It's a shimmer mirror, right? It's a shimmer mirror, but it has extra abilities. And you know what you don't want? You don't want to cast Eldrazi at sorcery speed and let everyone like take time and remove it. You can just hang back, pretend you're holding up that 7 mana spot removal spell, and then just like flash in a crazy Eldrazi and then immediately attack. So I think it's actually the glue that holds this deck together.
So I will say, I was actually kind of lower on it for one reason, which is we just got Liberator Urza Battlethopter, which I think is just like this but slightly better. So I think this is like, if you want more than one of these effects, I think it's good. And Urza's Liberator Urza's Battlethopter does show up in a lot of decks that have colorless spells. 2% of decks, so I guess not a lot, but it does show up in decks. So I think it's good. It's good, but I think it's a little worse than Liberator, honestly. So if you're only choosing one, go with Liberator. But if you want 2, then I think this is a good backup.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's not an artifact is kind of boring, but at least this one makes sense in other decks than just this deck, because you could play it in artifacts. I played behind the was a hat flying Liberator, but I mean, if you like this effect, Shimmermirror's play. I mean, I would play it before Shimmermirror, although being an artifact is kind of key. for these kinds of decks.
I mean, it depends on what you're doing, right? If you have
for this
artifact
deck,
synergies, then the artifacting help. But like, this works with Devoid. Artifacts work with like colored artifacts, right? Like if you have a Great Henge or something, I don't know, right? Like so, like the text actually kind of matters. But this is also a win con. Like you cast, what was it, Flayer of Loyalties, and this thing becomes a 10/10, right? A 12/12 actually, a 12/12 trample.
Yeah.
And target this and make it a 20.
Yeah, this would actually be like 22/22 trample.
Okay,
with the player. Like it's like Metallic Mimic. Remember the old modern deck?
yeah.
you just cast Eldrazi and then the stupid insect like just kills you.
Kind of sad that it's not actually Eldrazi for Temple.
I wasn't. Where's with all his dust? You can all his dust and like smack someone for 11.
I wasn't thinking about how big it got. It might actually be better than Liberator. Actually, I wasn't thinking about just like how massive it could get. Okay, I guess A is fine. I'd probably put her to B, but close enough. Close enough.
Oh, it spells mana value. It combos with Darksteel Monolith too. So even though you pay 0, it still pumps with the real amount.
Affinity spells. Yeah, we can go back to building that affinity deck. Mirror Enforcer +7/+7 get you. Frogmite get you.
Okay, last card of the deck. Ugin's Mastery. 4 mana enchantment. It's all generic mana. Whenever you cast a colorless creature spell, manifest the top card of your library. Whenever you attack with creatures total power 6 or greater, you may turn a face down creature you control face up.
This one I actually like.
We'd say this is very good. Average or cuttable?
I'd be fine at A or B plus. It is another card that works with just artifacts. Well, not an S though.
Wait, what is the green one that does this? What are the manifests? We have a bunch of spells that just let you manifest.
Yeah. Is there anything that... I don't think there's anything that manifests every time you cast a spell.
But it's the green one that stopped playing standard. Oh wait, that was Whisperwood Elemental. It's just every turn or something.
You just manifest on your end step. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, there's this ape that manifests from the opponent if they cast something or something. This ape monkey thing.
I think the big black thing. Yeah, I think it manifests from everyone's deck on their upkeep or something like that. I don't know. Like, it is only colorless creatures.
Only creatures is the problem.
If it was any colorless spell, I would think it was very strong.
Yes.
But only being colorless creatures, I think it's still decent. And if I'm playing a deck with a bunch of colorless creatures, I think I would run this card. But I don't think it's a card that... I think it's going to be slower than people actually expect. Because if your deck is full of these big 7, 8, 9 drop Eldrazi, you're casting like a spell a turn, you're manifesting one thing a turn. I think it's good.
So
I think it's good.
The manifest just flips up. It doesn't cast, right?
Yeah,
so
it does
manifest
not.
an Eldrazi. Because like the 6 power is not that hard, especially if you're manifesting. You can just hit with like 3 manifest creatures, but then you don't get the cast triggers.
But you could just flip into something huge, which is, I mean, a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It's got to be a B.
So is this average or scuffed? Okay, average. Okay.
Yeah, I think average is fine. I think it's a good
got to be better
card.
than the 10 drop, right? It's
yes.
Be better than 10 drop.
I think the 10 drop's the lowest B that we have, and the commander's the highest B.
Okay. There we go.
2 A's, that's not bad, right? Like that's pretty good. Although we're cutting like half the new cards. But no D's either. There were no D's.
What is D is not even a category here. I didn't even label it.
Oh, okay. That's like, rip it in half or something.
Okay. There we go. There's Eldrazi.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next deck. Enchantments. So our commander is Anikhthea, Hand of Erebos. 2 white, black, green. So 5 Abzan, 4/4. Legendary enchantment creature demigod. It has menace. Other enchantment creatures you control have menace. When it ETBs or attacks, exile up to 1 target non-aura enchantment from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 3/3 black zombie creature in addition to its other types.
Such a cool
That's
card.
like, I don't know, this like Scarab Goddess. Like it's like reanimating enchantments out of your graveyard. This is
It's a cool commander, yeah.
It's a cool commander.
Best card in your deck.
It is. Oh, yeah. I think it's probably the best card in your deck. It's a cool build around commander. It's got decent stats. Its ability is powerful. I think A's. So if like format staples like Prosper level busted, I don't think I'd put it in an S, but I think it's like a very solid and it'll be a very popular commander.
Good thing it doesn't have blue in its mana costs, otherwise it would be too easy.
That's one of the things I like about it, actually.
Bringing back Omniscience?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that it's Abzan. That's kind of an under-supported enchantment color. Like, Sethis is really good in Selesnya. They got a bunch of Esper ones like Zur. So I like that this is kind of a unique color combination. And it works well. The black gives you, like, the graveyard synergy. So you can, like, entomb or whatever, get that enchantment that you really want into your graveyard and then use this to reanimate it. So it's a super cool design. I like it a lot.
What's the best black enchantment to reanimate?
What's the big curse? Cruel Reality or something? There's a couple of big black curses that get people.
Yeah. Oh, the curses would be good. I mean, you can just get a Phyrexian Arena. You can also get Humility. It would be hilarious.
Overwhelming Splendor. And you can also populate the tokens, right? So you kind of exile your own stuff, which sucks, but then you can populate the tokens in these colors, which is probably pretty cool.
You know, you can also, you know how you go off of this is just like doubling season effects because they're tokens.
Oh, yes.
So your doubling season will double, and the next one quadruple, and it'll just like ridiculously snowball. So any doubling season, parallel lives, anointed procession. Yeah,
we're in the right colors for this. This is the right colors. So yeah. All right. Boom. Already better off. Yeah. Better start the Eldrazi deck right here. Our commander is not being up for the cut discussion. All right, let's look at the lieutenant here. Narcy, Fable Singer. 1 white, black, green. So 4 mana, 3/3. Legendary creature, human bard, lifelink. When you sacrifice an enchantment, draw a card. When the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the saga's mana value.
I rated this A as well. I like the uniqueness of whenever you sacrifice an enchantment. Too bad, I think I forgot the name. No. There was a planeswalker that made aura shard tokens or something, and they were clues but enchantments pretty much. I wish they were in Abzan colors. Maybe at some point they will make them and you can put them. Like, I feel like sacrificing enchantments is pretty unique. The second line of text is, oh, by the way, this works with sagas, sure. But sacrificing enchantments is kind of neat.
Do the sagas sacrifice when they resolve?
They do. The last lore counter you sacrifice it. Yeah.
So this is really
flip
like
ones, right?
You drain everyone, draw a card when saga pops off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So essentially, your Elspeth Conquers Death sacrifices, you drain for 5, you draw a card. I don't know though, like, do you think it's better as a saga commander or just like a enchantment aristocrats commander, like Oratogs, and like intentionally trying to do like the aristocrat synergies? I mean, I guess that's part of what makes it good, is it has multiple pathways. You can be like sagas if you want to, you can be an enchantment aristocrat deck. I think it's an A.
So sagas are scuffed. I would definitely. What's that like precon commander with Marin? It's like Daxos or something, and he makes. I think he makes spirit enchantment tokens or something.
Yep, does he Daxos the Returned.
He's actually a token generator, and I'm sure there's some combo you can do here, but like the aristocrats mode, I think is infinitely more interesting than the saga mode.
Yeah.
Because if you really wanted that, you probably want Tom Bombadil, right? Like, isn't getting more sagas better than draining everyone and drawing a card? But
I would assume so.
You want sagas at all, so I like the
the drain is actually kind of underwhelming as well. Like, if the saga mode would draw cards, I would probably go for the sagas. But the interesting part is the first line of text, second line, I guess.
Yeah, and it also makes some kind of new archetype, which makes it interesting.
Pretty cool art
All right.
as well. Not roasting the card this time.
Battle at the Hell Vault. It's a saga. 6 mana, double white, so 4 white. 1 and 2 are for each player exile up to 1 target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until Battle of the Hell Vault leaves the battlefield. And then 3 is create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying vigilance and indestructible.
Can we add D? Can we add D to our scale, Richard?
Is Avacyn getting a D?
No,
it's Avacyn. We got to keep at least C, right?
It's probably. I mean, so the removal is very temporary, and then you're maybe letting your opponent re-trigger their ETB stuff, which is always a risk when you're doing that. And then you get an 8/8 that still gets swords or solituded or legitimate business personized. Like there's a lot of answers to an indestructible creature. So I don't know. I don't. Would you play this in a saga deck? You played Tom recently, Richard. Would this make it in Tom? Like when you
Probably,
legitimately just
not,
care about sagas?
That's because all sagas kind of suck. But it's so okay. Avacyn is indestructible. But the battle at the Hell Vault is not, right? So not. If people are worried, while it's down ticking, they can, or up ticking, I guess, they can kill the battle. I will say, I think what you're supposed to do with this is battle at the Hell Vault, lock up the board, and then put Avacyn down to stabilize, but she doesn't even have lifelink, right? So what you really need is lock up your own creatures in the Hell Vault, Wrath. And then when you wrath, wait, does that even work? No, it doesn't even work. They come back when you want to wrath. Okay, so you have to creature wrath. You creature wrath to remove the creatures, and then Avacyn will pop out with your Hell Vault creatures. But if you do like an Ondu inversion, your Avacyn's not coming anymore. So it's a very specific and terrible combo to what amounts to just getting an 8/8. Flying indestructible vigilance out of this.
It reads like it has read ahead or something. It's kind of weird that it's 6 mana. 6 mana, right?
6 mana, no read ahead.
And then wouldn't 6 mana this Avacyn be kind of along the lines of today's power level if it's a token? So why does it cost
for non-standard
6 mana? That's so crazy. It's like you're gonna wait until turn 8 to get a Avacyn token, which is
if she had lifelink, cool, it would make more sense to me. Like you're like, oh, the board is like kind of scary, so I'll just like kind of lock away the creatures for a turn or two. Then Avacyn will come in, gain life, and fix it for me. But like she doesn't. Like she just comes down, everything else comes back out, and then
You're right though that like sagas are a new card type. So if you're trying to build a saga deck, like that new commander we were just talking about, Narcy or Tom. It probably makes the cut there just because of the lack of better options. But as far as like an enchantment deck or something, no.
In a pile of C cards, this could be very good. But if you rank it relative to other cards. Okay, Boon of the Spirit Realm, 3 white, 5 mana enchantment, Constellation. 1 it or another enchantment ETBs, put a blessing counter on it. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each blessing counter on Boon of the Spirit Realm.
Isn't this card great?
Isn't this like Cathar's Crusade?
Cathar's Crusade for enchantments. Yeah.
I mean, it's not my style of card, but it's probably very good in a enchantment creature deck. I don't play these kinds of cards, so yeah. Cathar's Crusade is also crazy.
I mean, Cathar's Crusade is like legit staple. That's like 8% of decks.
Cathar's Crusade is this, but better.
It is.
Right,
it is mostly better. This goes in a very different deck, though. Like, if you're playing it in an enchantment deck, this is probably better than Cathar's Crusade because all your, like, enchant lands and auras and all that are going to be triggering this as well.
Yeah, but you can just remove this thing and everything is fine again. Crusade just makes everything.
You're an enchantment deck. You can reanimate it. You probably drew 5 cards when this thing came down. Right?
I mean, the way I imagine this is when you see like Sethis or an enchantment deck go off, they get to this like huge mass where they're making so much mana and they're casting like 10 enchantments during a turn. So I imagine this is kind of your coat of arms where you like wait until you get things set up, you drop this, play a bunch of enchantments, and just like kill the table all that turn. Like your enchantment Crater Hoof or something.
Yeah. I'd probably
You could also
Keep it
reanimate it with Anithia and like just show the board how scary you are. You could probably get this thing pretty scary pretty quickly. You get it out early as well.
Shouldn't we compare it directly to Kathar's Crusade, though? It's the same mana costs. And
Yes.
It kind of does similar things. I just think the counters
I mean,
are
Kathar's
better than
Crusade is actually an S card. Because
Okay,
like
maybe,
everyone
yeah,
plays
if
creatures,
Crusade is
right?
an S. Yeah.
But if you're playing enchantments, like, because remember, this will trigger off you playing like your 1 mana enchant lands or whatever, your pacifisms, all that stuff. And you're drawing cards when all this is happening, right? Because you're probably enchantressing it up. It's also being reanimated with Starfield of Nyx and whatever. So I think in an enchantment deck, this beats Kathar's Crusade. Like, I would play this over Kathar's Crusade in enchantment-based deck because there's just so much more added synergies.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think Kathar's Crusade's probably better overall, especially since you can play it in like any creature deck, and there's more creature decks than enchantment decks. But in an enchantment deck, I think this is roughly on that power level, like similar power level to Kathar's Crusade.
All right. Undo Spirit Dancer, 5 mana, 3/3. That's white, core cleric. When enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a copy of it. Do this only once each turn. It's a Panharmonicon.
copies
It
something.
is,
Is it
which
scuffed
is why
There's once
I
per turn?
feel really bad about saying this card's
Uh-oh.
not actually good.
Uh-oh.
I want to like
Cuttable?
this. I love, I would probably put it in the C. Like, I love Panharmonicon effects, but it's only once a turn. It's a 5 mana 3/3. So it's not only do you have to take the turn off, but you take the turn off for something that dies to a lot of removal compared to Panharmonicon. It's not an enchantment itself. Like, playing a non-enchantment card in an enchantment deck is actually kind of a high cost because you have a lot of cards that care about just like how many enchantments are on the battlefield. I tap to make mana equal to the amount of enchantments you control. So to play a non-enchantment, you really got to be strong to make it an enchantress. So when I add all those things together, as much as I love this card, I don't think from a perspective of being optimal, I would play it. I might play it for fun just because I like Panharmonicons, but if I was actually trying to like build the best version of the deck, I think I would cut it.
Yeah, I sadly have to agree. I would play it though, because man, it seems very fun. But
it is super fun.
Right, sadly. It's the rate is
I think
just
you're right. I intuitively I thought it'd be a B, but
yeah.
you're
I
right.
thought it'd be an A, but the more you think about the play pattern, it's so overcosted and fragile. I don't know why they did this. It seems
It could have
very
been
fair,
a little
even.
cheaper. Maybe.
Like Seth's
in a better
point
way.
is like I'd rather play a 1 mana enchantment over this because when I play that I get to draw 3 cards off my enchantresses and like turn on my other stuff. So playing a non-enchantment has a huge cost. But you get
that's
more
probably the
tokens.
biggest downside. It's
I don't know what you would do with it. What if it didn't have the once per turn? Would it be any better or would it still be scuffed? Would you
Then
Probably-
it might actually be exciting, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
most
then you could,
enchantment
like-
decks play small enchantments and chain them instead of just one big one. So
Yeah, that's another good reason why the once per turn really hurts. But yeah, because then you could like cast the enchant land enchantments and it would eventually like make its mana cost back and like kind of combo with it. So I think if it didn't have the restriction, it would at least be a B. Maybe, probably a B.
Okay. Cacophony Unleashed, 7 mana, 5 black. It's an enchantment. When it ETBs, if you cast it, destroy all non-enchantment creatures. And then when it or another enchantment enters a battlefield under your control until end of turn, it becomes a legendary 6/6 nightmare god creature with menace and death touch. It's still an enchantment.
I don't know why I would play this, honestly. It's
It's a one-sided wrath that turns into a nightmare for some reason.
7 mana. At least it's... Why does it... I mean, it would be cool if you can blink it, but it says when you cast it, so...
Destroy all non-enchantment creatures. So if you only have enchantment creatures, you're good.
Is the commander an enchantment creature?
Yes. The commander is, but the second one, Narcy, is not. It's just a normal creature.
So we have Extinguish All Hopes, which is just 6 mana sorcery. You blow up all non-enchantment creatures. That's honestly kind of fringe. Even enchantment decks, it's kind of like, sometimes we play it,
But that's a
sometimes we
sorcery
don't.
set. This is an enchantment.
That's the upside. This is the downside we were just talking about with the Panharmonicon thing of not being an enchantment. The upside of this is it is triggering your Enchantress effects. It is doing those things and saving your board. Still, though, it's
not your
7
Enchantresses, most of them.
But not
Your-
your,
all-
not
all your
Enchantresses
Enchantresses die.
7 mana
Some-
is a lot. 7 mana is a lot.
I mean, that's the rate for a one-sided Wrath.
But
7
that
mana is
assumes you're
usually-
playing all enchantment creatures, though. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if it really is a one-sided Wrath, then yeah, that's a fair price.
And then it becomes a win con. You hit people with a 6/6 Menace Death Toucher.
Yeah, I don't know if I care about that part of it.
That's so
much,
random.
honestly.
Doesn't even have lifelink. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fine. It's probably a B. Like, do you got to
B,
cut it?
C,
No.
B.
Like, I don't know. Is it that
Okay,
bad?
Damnation.
Damnation.
Okay, maybe not. Okay, Damnation is pretty good. Okay, what was it? Crux of Fate, the 5 mana Wrath dragons or non-dragons, or Cacophony Unleashed in your Enchantress deck here.
Okay, so here's a question for you guys. I think when it comes down to it, the question is, do you value your deck being as flavorful as possible or as powerful as possible? Like,
Do you like the art on the card?
I mean, but like, seriously, Toxic Deluge, Damnation, they're just better, right? I think even in an enchantment deck, I think they're just better. But I can see the argument that you're like, you want to make your deck be flavorful and you want to like hit that mark. So in that case, maybe you power down your deck a little bit and play this over a Deluge or a Damnation just because it is an enchantment. But if we're going just by power level, I don't know if this makes my enchantment decks. Maybe, but
What about 5 mana sweep? So after Damnation, you're hitting the 5 mana sweeper category. Is this better than that?
Better than
I think I would
Sunfall?
play
I don't
Decree of
think so.
Pain.
Yeah.
Oh,
would
If
take
I was
Decree of
wanting an
Pain,
expensive
actually.
wrath, I would probably play Decree of Pain and just draw a bunch of cards. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I just I don't
is
think
very-
Wraths is where you have to keep with the flavor, unless you can make it
It's like-
one-sided, but doesn't really
I think it'd be
work.
high C. I would put it as the first C. Like high C or like very bottom of B for me personally.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as that Saga. That Saga.
I actually
so
like
far.
the Spirit Dancer more than it, but
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's better than Battle of Hellvault. It synergizes though. You can't kill Avacyn. Avacyn's
That's-
indestructible.
combo.
Just play the original Everson and a regular Wrath. I think that's easier.
Probably better.
Yeah, this assumes like you have enchantment creatures, which are not actually that common.
Yeah.
So this is just a Wrath, kind of. So it's not.
If it's
actually
just a
that
wrath,
good.
then it's bad, right? Then cut for sure.
But I mean, you
Yeah, the
maybe get
problem
one or
is the
two
payoff.
creatures, but a lot of your creatures will die. Like a lot of the enchantresses are actually just like regular non-enchantments. So yeah, and also you can't reanimate this thing. You have to cast it. It's a cast trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can reanimate it for the demon, but that's such an underwhelming text box. Like, why doesn't it do anything of value? Like a 6/6? Maybe I'm
Yeah.
not the
creature's
best
not
person to talk
exciting.
about
It's a very sad god.
aggressive
It's a
creatures or
nightmare
something.
god.
Yeah, it does pretty much nothing. Man, compare it to Meathook Massacre if you want an enchantment Wrath. That does a lot over the course of the game while staying on the board. So
That's
expensive,
actually
though.
true.
All right. Demon of Fate's Design. 6 mana, 4 black. It's a 6/6 enchantment creature. It lives through the wrath. It's a demon. It flies, it tramples. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an enchantment spell by paying life equal to its mana value rather than its mana cost. 2 and a black, sacrifice another enchantment. Demon of Fate's Design gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed enchantment's mana value.
This card's ridiculous, right? Like the
Keurig.
upside, the ceiling is super
Keurig?
high. So
No, it's enchantment
Keurig,
only.
yeah, that's the difference. Keurig works with anything. Like this is like kind of safe Keurig for an Enchantress deck, but I imagine you're trying to reanimate this, which kind of works with the theme of the precon. It's got the sacrifice graveyard theme, so I imagine the idea is you like entomb this in the graveyard, reanimate it, put Omniscience into play, win or something on turn 2. There are some really explosive lines that this enables, right?
it also combos with the second commander because it sacrifices enchantments to draw cards. It also just one taps your opponent if you sacrifice expensive enchantments, maybe like 3, which is already 9 mana, but at least you can cast them cheap with this. It's a pretty, it's a straight A for me. Like if you play enchantments, that should probably be in there. And talking about the best black enchantments to reanimate, this is probably among them in an enchantment deck.
Because then you can play something else.
Yeah.
Do tokens have a 0 mana value or their original one? So if I use my commander, if I use my commander to like bring back something.
No, they should have mana costs if they're copies.
Yeah, so this is...
And then you could sack them to, it could definitely one-shot people in the late game. If you have, like, can activate that 2 or 3 times, you might be able to just take someone out by sacking big enchantments.
Yeah.
I like this card. I would also have it as an A. I think if I'm an enchantment deck and I have black mana, I'm probably running it.
Yep. Okay. Ghoulish Impetus. 2 and a black. It's 3 mana. Enchant Aura. Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. Has Death Touch and is goaded. When the enchanted creature dies, return Ghoulish Impetus to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So you can send it around the table, giving your opponent's creatures Death Touch and Goad. And when the creature dies, you get to bring this thing back.
I mean, said that it has Death Touch because then it doesn't get blocked. But I do like all the impetus play very well. So this probably as well. It's kind of awkward that it gives Death Touch, but then it doesn't really want to get blocked.
I will say, though, like, yes, the impetuses do play pretty well, but every time I buy precon, the first thing I do is go through and pull out all the impetuses I put in there and replace them with other cards. I think that this card is at its best in, like, forced combat decks, right? Like, Kazakar, Cardor, any of those, like, make people attack, goad, get advantage from making everyone attack each other. Almost like Tomer's, like, Slicer, send it around the table, make sure people are attacking, damage is being done. That's where I like this card. I think in the precon itself, or in a typical Enchantress deck, you just got better removal. Like, why would I play this as removal in a typical Enchantress deck? But if you're doing, like, forced combat shenanigans, I think it's an easy inclusion. Yeah.
What does it do for your 3 mana besides annoy the table? They're like, oh, what is this? I gotta play with this card now. At least Shiny Impetus, like, you get treasures. Like, it does something, right? This is just like... I guess you put it on a very scary creature that people want to remove. That I don't know what it would be like, but they were probably attacking anyway. Though if it was a scary creature, and if it was not a scary creature like a Toski, now it attacks, but it had to attack anyway. Let's say it's a 1/1. You give it Death Touch, people just keep taking 2 because they don't want it to die. And their creature.
That's what I mean. It should get decayed, actually. Then, if the creature would get decayed and goad, and then it would come back, take notes, Wizards. That would be actually an insane card, and probably that would fine for 3 mana. It's only... Never mind, it would be insane. You would just... Hey,
it might need to be
your
like
game
a little
up.
more mana.
2023.
I like that.
Maybe for 4 mana, but decayed and goad would be an insane combo with the last text box there. It has Death Touch, though, which is probably the worst for this.
All right. Composer of Spring. 2 mana. It's 1 in a green. It's a 1/3. Satyr Bard. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 6 or more enchantments, instead you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped.
I do like that.
Right?
Yeah. His lands are tapped, so he can't chain off. But it does seem pretty good. Kind of weird that it puts a creature not.
You have 6 enchantments, you can just start putting creatures into play?
One thing I've seen with enchantment decks when they go off is eventually you get to that point where you draw so many cards, you just discard a ton of hand size when you have like 2 or 3 or 4 enchantresses stacked up. This seems like a really good way to get around that. Yeah. Like in the early game, you can probably ramp. And then in the late game, when you're having your big combo turns, you're just going to be dropping all your lands and creatures into play. So I actually like this too. I wish it was an enchantment. That's the only thing that gives me a little pause, is like, it's another one of those, like, it's not an enchantment in my enchantment deck, but I think this one actually might be strong enough that it's worth it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is actually the best card in the deck.
Probably. Most efficient.
So when your enchantment deck goes off, you just draw so many cards. And like the downside to these effects is like, oh, it's turn 5. I have no lands in hand. Like, what does this even do, right? But you just keep casting cards and then drawing cards, putting more lands. You just pair it with an Amulet of Vigor or something like that. Or maybe you have a Serra Sanctum, or, you know, the creature Serra Sanctum that just keeps, you know, growing in mana. You can just like dump your whole hand by doing this. So I really like this card.
Could you imagine if you could get Enchanted Evening going, so everything was an enchantment, and you like put a land into play and it triggers your enchantresses to draw cards and triggers us to put another? I think you could just put your
Bounce
entire
land would go infinite.
Actually, Bounce land would go infinite. Yeah, so if you turn your stuff into enchantments, this like goes super infinite.
Yep, I think it's worth playing as a non-enchantment card in your Enchantress deck.
I would agree. I think there's enough upside there.
All right. Last card, Nyxborn Behemoth, 12 mana, 10 green. It's a 10/10 enchantment creature beast. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of non-creature enchantments you control. Trample, and then 1 in the green, sacrifice another enchantment. Nyxborn Behemoth gains indestructible until end of turn.
Yeah. I mean, at least like
it's Metalwork Colossus.
Yeah, but Metalwork Colossus you usually pay for 3, not for 2 green. And even then,
usually,
it's just a big creature.
It reminds me of Earthquake Dragon. They printed that in Baldur's Gate. It's like a 15 mana dragon that gets X less Rexes, the mana value dragons you control. I'm like, why? Why would I play that over something that does things? It draws me cards. Like,
it's a win con. Oh, I'm so you can feel Richard's timidness here. I'm like,
I
it's
know.
a 10/10. You can cast it for like 5 mana.
It's half a Desolation Twin. It's half a Desolation Twin.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work with the commander, right? Because the commander makes creature enchantments when it reanimates, so that doesn't reduce the cost of this. So you actually have to play like actual real enchantments. So if you play like a 5-mana enchantment, this becomes a 7-mana 10/10 trample. It's not that good.
No.
So you need to actually, I guess it's total mana. Oh wait, it's total mana value. Total.
Yeah. So you can stack up a bunch of cheap enchantments and then get it down to 2 mana. Is that even worth it though? Let's say you can get this down on turn 5 or 6 for 2 mana. Like, are you putting that in your deck? Because I don't think I am. Like, I don't like things that are just big creatures. I guess at least it has trample. That is an upside.
And can gain indestructible.
Maybe like a Bogglesy style deck if you're trying to like put auras on stuff. This isn't the worst aura target.
I don't know if I want to be loading up auras on this 12 mana card.
Especially since your commander says non-auras on this, so maybe chill with the auras.
Oh yeah,
it is pretty cool with the demon. If you sacrifice it, it gets +12 all.
Oh, that's true. That's,
it's a sack outlet. It's a sack outlet that's better. The demon's a 3-mana sack outlet. This is a 2-mana sack outlet, right? This is. Yeah.
I guess that's the upside, and that's something that's kind of rare. There's not that many enchantment sack outlets, so if you're trying to do shenanigans with like Narcy or whatever, you might end up playing this as a sack outlet more than an actual beater. It is funny how it interacts with the demon too. I guess you could like sack it to the demon, reanimate it with your commander when it attacks, sack it again, and just hit someone for like 30 or whatever. Like that's actually a lot of damage for like 5 mana, not that much mana. So maybe I'm being too harsh on it. I just normally don't play big creatures. Like, even if they're cheap, it's just not my style of commander card. But
what if they draw you like 4 cards on the way down though?
Oh, actually, no.
You're an Enchantress deck.
Greater Good. Greater Good's a non-creature enchantment that likes big creatures to sacrifice. Okay, I might be talking myself into liking this card more than I was before.
Have to sack it to draw a card. I mean, it's a green spell, so you typically don't play the power-based drawing in Enchantress because you have so many draw engines. But you could play the Garrick type card draw where it relies on the fact that it's a 10/10 and just draw 10 cards.
Yeah.
Like Rishkar's expertise, stuff like that.
Okay.
Works. You could
Actually,
fight. I don't know what you would do with this.
You know what?
It's not
I
that
started
bad.
off as like hard cut, but I might be a B on this actually. We need at least something in the B tier from this deck. I would probably put it in the B tier. Like, I don't think you got to cut it, but it's probably not as good as the Timmies think.
Okay, is it better than
the
the Spirit Dancer? Is it better than the Fake Wrath?
I think it is. Like, so it is an enchantment. It's a sack outlet, which is relevant, and maybe it's a big creature that matters. But just the being an enchantment and a sack outlet, I think, puts it ahead of those cards. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm happy with the B.
All right.
This deck is way better than the Eldrazi deck. Like, I'm kind of blown away that, like, the Eldrazi deck, we had, what, 2 A's, a ton of B's, a ton of C's. This, like, totally shifted. We got 5. We got 5 A's in this one. So, does that mean this deck's just stronger? Like, if you're going to pick up a deck, should you be going after this one?
I mean, that's just the few new cards. I don't know how the decks play in the end. It is pretty sad that they went so safe on the Eldrazi deck, because I was actually pretty hyped up about this, because I play an artifact deck and thought I might get some neat inclusions, but they were all like, ooh, only colorless creatures. With this one, it's a little bit wider and a little bit more interesting because it involves the graveyard and a card type. Eldrazi was just colorless, and not even Eldrazi, actually. The Eldrazi deck is just a colorless creature deck. This one is a bit more tricky. I like this more.
Yeah. I mean, I think Enchantments is a much stronger archetype than Eldrazi, just ignoring this deck. And I think the Eldrazi deck can stumble. Like, it has powerful spells, but they cost 12 mana. You got to get the 12 mana, right? And I'm not even sure if you cast those, you're actually doing anything better than what this deck is doing at 6 mana, right? You're like, oh, draw 4, take an extra turn. Well, like, what if I generate infinite mana and draw a card every time I play a permanent, and they just like one-shot you? So I like this deck better, but I don't know. I think it's part of the problem of like Enchantments is very strong, like outside of these precons. So if they want cards that people will play, they have to make them very strong. Yeah. And then Eldrazi's kind of like the Timmy deck. We'll just make really expensive spells, and if you cast them, it'll be great. But then there'll be games where you don't cast them, right? So
I think,
yeah, I don't know.
You also get way more upgrade potential with enchantments, just because that's a theme that's been around since Alpha, when Eldrazi is like, we've only had a couple sets that really support that game plan. So I feel like, I don't know, personally, I would probably buy, if I was picking between these two decks for which one I was going to buy and play with and eventually upgrade, I think I would go with the enchantment deck, both because I think it's like more interesting, and also I think it just has way more upgrade potential, a broader theme.
Yeah, just throw Sithis in there and try not to make her the commander. Because that is the problem with enchantments. Like, they pushed it so far. With this is
Abzan now, so if you want to play your black cards, you have no choice.
Yeah, maybe technically all the black cards are cuts because Sethis is going to be your commander.
Yeah, that's. All right, we're not going to go there. So those are the first two decks. Next week, we're going to do the remaining two decks, which would be Slivers and Planeswalkers. Yeah. I will say Wizards chose some banger themes for these precons. They chose kind of fan-favorite themes.
Yeah. The cards are kind of... I'm pretty happy that I didn't spend $100 on the decks, to be honest.
Oh, spoiler alert, Phil. We haven't finished the tier list.
The cards are good. It's just like the issue is they're just a little bit expensive. I think the Eldrazi deck is like $140, $150 now if you want it, which is just, that's a lot to ask for a precon deck. So I think the cards are sweet. I like a lot of them, but bring the price down next time, Modsy, please.
All right. So we'll see you here back next week. See you, everyone.